My wife says this wall is boring, and I respond like any typical guy, looks okay to me. Apparently I was wrong.
Listen to me, you're wrong. And if you don't get it, I feel sorry for you.
Now you're just being rude. And it was quickly added to my never-ending honey-do list. So this weekend, I'm gonna knock it off the list and go from this to this. The first step was to figure out exactly how much material was needed. To do this, I thought it'd be best to draw the whole design on the actual wall. I could then calculate the material plus have a layout already on the wall in which to follow. I first found the center of the wall by measuring width and height. I then divided those halves into halves again. Next, I used a large speed square as my 45-degree angle for all the diamond shapes. The layout took a couple hours to do, but it was definitely well worth it. Turned out I only needed one sheet of 5/8 MDF for the whole project. This whole design is only going to require 13 3-inch strips, so not even a full sheet of MDF. Whenever using MDF, you're gonna end up with rough edges on all your cuts. Now you can go ahead and sand these as individual strips, or you can work smart, clamp them all together and just get her done. Sanding MDF creates a lot of harmful dust in the air, so make sure your space is well ventilated before doing this. My shop is still in the works, so my dust collection is very limited. I mean, non-existent. But what I do have is one gigantic fan that clears the air in seconds. I'm starting with the vertical strips measuring floor to ceiling. Once we laid the vertical strips in their corresponding locations on the wall, it was clear to my wife that they were too wide, so I ripped down one of them from 3.5 to 1.5 inches and laid the pattern out on the floor for her to get a better picture of the overall design. Again, I do have to side with her on this one. The 1.5 inch strip on the right tends to work better with this design. Now the only other thing I had to deal with as far as the vertical strips was this outside edge strip. This is an exit from our hallway into our living room, so there is a risk of catching something on it in passing. So to soften this edge, all I'm going to do is run a 1/4 inch bull nose down the full length using a trim router. I'm using glue and 1 3/4 brad nails to fasten all the MDF to the walls. Now that all the verticals are in place, I'll create one of the diamond edges based off the layout I drew on the wall in the beginning, then use that as a template to batch cut all the pieces that make up the diamonds. Now the wall can start to come to life. Also, one other thing to mention before you start to put everything together, to lessen the chance of joints cracking over time, I recommend using a liberal amount of glue on all your butt joints as well as the wall surface itself. Now this isn't going to guarantee it won't crack, but there is a much less chance that it will. I'll be using a regular joint compound to fill all the nail holes and seams. You could use a Bondo on this step, but I feel confident with my glue up, so this is all I'm going to use. Joint compound will shrink as it dries, so 2 coats is usually necessary. And for the seams between the wall and the MDF, I'm using a paintable latex DAP product. I plan on spraying this wall feature, but before I do that, I'll brush and roll all the raw MDF with a primer. MDF, and more specifically the edges of MDF, will suck up paint like crazy, so applying a primer first, then sanding the primer, then spraying your finished coats will give the best finish. Obviously, you don't have to go to this degree, and I'm sure the wall will look just as good if you just brushed and rolled it. However, there is a saying in the finishing world that I try to avoid with projects that I do, and it goes like this: it's good from afar, but far from good. My goal is always to try to have the finished project look good whether I'm 6 inches from it or 20 feet from it. As much as I was dreading this project, I am happy with the final results. More importantly, my wife is happy. And here I thought the most expensive part of this project was a sheet of MDF, but apparently a new love seat was required to bring the whole area together. Who knew? Now it looks like a podcast studio. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you're into DIY and home improvement, hit the subscribe button. Maybe we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.